Good morning. My name is Julie Rassicott, and I am the editor of Bethesda Today. For more than 10 years, Bethesda Today has strived to fulfill our mission to inform, connect, and inspire Montgomery County through trusted journalism. We cover the issues that matter most, from education, public safety, and transportation, to housing, politics, dining, and the arts. And more recently, the impacts of federal actions on the local federal workers in the county. Among our stories, we reported earlier this month on the opening of the Mobilized Montgomery Federal Workforce Career Center in Wheaton. And this morning we have a story talking about the nearly $8 million that the County Council wants to spend to address a possible halt in SNAP funding that could occur as early as Saturday, and to support residents and businesses impacted by the government shutdown. As many of you know, Montgomery County is at the forefront of innovation with life and health sciences, tech, and engineering driving growth. Today, through our partnership with the universities at Shady Grove, we'll dive into the latest trends, challenges, and opportunities in these fields and explore how we can work together to create a sustainable future. We have brought together a panel of experts who will discuss how you can create a career path in the fields of health and life sciences, technology, and engineering. Our panelists are Todd Cohen, Senior Manager, Workforce Development Lead at the Lockheed Martin Corp., Paula Henderson, Chief People Officer, United States Pharmacopoeia, Namit Kapoor, Director of Workforce Management and Programs for Adventist Healthcare, Dr. Scott Riley of the University of Maryland at Baltimore and the USG Pharmaceutical Sciences Programs, Erin Steiner, a certified career coach and a career advisor at the universities at Shady Grove, and Dr. Muhammad Ali Yusuf of the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and the Assistant Graduate Program Director, Data Science at UMBC and the universities at Shady Grove. Our panel will be moderated by Dr. Rudy Ruiz, Director of the Ready Institute at the universities at Shady Grove and Vice President and Partner at 4 Point Education Partners. Dr. Ruiz.
Thank you so much, Julie, Stacy, Jennifer, and the Bethesda Today team. On behalf of Chief Strategy Officer Mary Lang, Universities of Shady Grove Executive Director Dr. Ann Kademian, and the USG team. Together, we make it happen. The mission of USG is to support and expand pathways to affordable, high-quality public higher education that meet the distinctive needs of the region and are designed to support workforce and economic development in the state. And to achieve these goals through partnerships and collaborations with academic, business, public sector, and community organizations. Since early this year, I've been serving as the director of the Ready Institute at USG, working to ensure resilient education for all, designed for you, looking at more up-to-date and personalized data to guide career planning and success. We've spent the past month hosting a series of employer-focused groups, gathering insights on the future of work. We've learned so much about the continued importance of human connection, resilience, and adaptability. And we're grateful for the opportunity to host this important conversation conceived and put on by Bethesda Today. We have an incredible panel of employer and training experts who will share timely insights to help guide your next chapter. Thanks to Bethesda Today, we garnered many reader questions from you all, those who have registered for this morning's event, and our conversation will be guided by those questions. Nimith, you serve as Director of Workforce Management and Programs for Adventist Healthcare. Many attendees this morning are looking to transition into new industries, especially health, life sciences, and technology. I know Bethesda Magazine has written recently about your professional journey. Can you share some strategies for professionals to make successful mid or late career pivots?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I was struck by when people think about healthcare sector, healthcare setting, they think about clinical roles. I think there's a lot of non-clinical aspects of it too for healthcare that maybe people don't consider. From a clinical standpoint, there's a lot of opportunities to change careers or have a pivot if needed, if that's what your interest lies. When I was a nurse, I'm a nurse by background, so when I was a nurse in nursing school many years ago, many of my peers at the time were second careers and were getting to the sector because they had some interest in a healthcare setting and wanted to see if that's an opportunity for them. Many of those individuals were able to use some of those skills that they were doing before being a nurse into the nursing career. So for example, one of my colleagues was in IT industry and then he went into nursing and then he loved being a nurse, but as he progressed through the career, he actually became a nursing informatics, so helping with the electronic health record system, understanding that we're really helping the nurses to change the technology, or really, a number of clicks that they have to hit for documenting for our patients. So, he was able to really have a success story to change the career into nursing and then progress from there. Me personally, I was an ICU nurse, really loved what I did clinically. Saw a gap in some of our practices in terms of agency utilization or contract labor during the pandemic. Really worked with our HR teams to streamline that across the system. So right now I work with our HR colleagues to ensure we're bringing the right talent into the organization throughout the system. One of the other recommendations I would have is, if you have clinical skills outside of the clinical setting or skills outside the clinical setting, there's always opportunity within the healthcare system. The healthcare system gets supported by IT, they get supported by engineering, they get supported by finance. So I work for Adventist Healthcare. There's a few opportunities within Adventist Healthcare as well. But other healthcare industries also have similar opportunities. So as you're exploring, look at the qualifications that are needed for some of those roles, because you'll be surprised that some of the things you may be doing or you have done in the past that could really be applicable to the healthcare setting.
Really helpful start to the conversation, Nimit. Thank you. I'm wondering if any others would like to add about how can mature job seekers or those changing fields build confidence and credibility in a new industry?
Yeah, one of the things I recommend is networking. I think this event is one of those ideas and one of those opportunities for you guys. Maybe the job today or the job posting today may not be the right role for you, but make those connections. Talk to different individuals. Talk to your peers. Say, what are some strategies that they're using? There are, a lot of jobs out there, but I think some of the skill sets may be challenging. So maybe look at the jobs that your skill set fits in. Maybe today's job is not the next position, but the one after that will be the right role for you. So don't be afraid to reach out and reach out to the recruiters or email the organizations directly. I get emails every now and then or connected every now and then from potential candidates, and we do engage and say, let me connect you to this recruiter because they may be the right one to connect with you and kind of guide you the right way. And sometimes, it's one of those conversations that maybe today's not the right time, but let's connect again in 6 months. So you have those connections for the future as well.
Thank you so much, Nimit. Yeah, we had our Board of Advisors meeting here last week, and of course, we have a number of employer partners. And just, one of the testaments to that sentiment was an employer who said, I saw this prospective candidate at multiple events within a week or two, and that was a strong enough signal for us to know that that's the kind of person that we're looking for, and that was, by far stronger than just the resume itself. So thank you for that.
And as an employer, I've seen that myself, and have candidates in multiple job fairs, and we have hired those individuals because they're very dedicated for sure.
Thank you, Paula. You serve as Chief People Officer for U.S. Pharmacopoeia. A significant portion of questions came from former or current federal workers and contractors seeking guidance on navigating private sector or county level opportunities. What advice do you have for federal workers or contractors seeking to market their skills in the private sector?
Thank you. So the important thing for our federal employees or contractors is to know that the transition to other sectors is very possible. It happens all the time. Probably some of us sitting up here, and many of you have done that already in your careers, I would imagine. I think it's accurate to say that employers acknowledge that careers may not be linear like they were at one time, or they may have been in some cases in your own situations. There is a richness and a value in the experienced paths, the uniquely experienced paths that you may have or others around you, forged either by intention or by chance. So it's actually incumbent upon the job seeker to draw the parallels and intersections of their experiences and skills to those in the positions that are available in the market and to which their qualifications and their interests might align. In some cases, positions like project manager, accountant, HR business advisory, data scientist, other sorts of things may be similar titles that you'll find in other industries, And that makes it easy to apply then, right? You're like, I know this job, I know this title, they probably do what I do. You read the description and you feel like you may align. In other cases, you need to dig. We do a lot of fancy and different titles now in different industries, calling one job something different than what another industry may call it. So then it's incumbent upon you to really, of course, look at the specs and find where the similarities and the intersections occur. And advice that you'll hear from all of us and already started to hear, research, 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 and I know you already know that, but keep doing it anyway. If you're in between jobs, you know the rest of it. Make job seeking your full-time job, but that's real. Get up at the same time, spend that day. Don't decide, in my opinion, to add a bunch of new hobbies and sort of other things to fill the time, because you'll be distracted from what really is probably the core responsibility at that point, which is finding a job, if indeed that's what your core responsibility is. Earlier this week, I spent a few minutes on the Biospace website. And if you're not familiar with it, it's a hub for life science, news, and jobs, and it connects professionals and organizations. And within 50 miles of Rockville, at least when I looked at it, there were about over 190 jobs available. And these are all different types of jobs. And if you remove the cap, the mileage cap or the radius cap, there were over 2,800. It's just one vehicle. There's many other things to look at, but I do encourage you for anything life sciences, technical, and all the support functions. There's marketing positions and legal and HR and finance and all the other functions that actually support the core work of an organization. And then network, network, network. You heard it once. It's probably not going to be the last time you hear it. So ensure that every conversation leads to another conversation through a referral. Ask for it, be very specific at the end. Is there anyone that you might recommend that I could have a conversation with? Besides the technical skills and the minimum qualifications, which essentially open the door for consideration by employers, we employers are also looking at the resilience of candidates and an understanding of their professional journeys. What's your story? If your road has included curves and valleys along the way, that's okay. Lean into them. You're not alone. Be prepared with your story, your own authentic story, about how you rebounded in the face of adversity, gained greater self-awareness, grew stronger, became more empathetic, leveraged your situation to take more risks, stepped out of your comfort zone, like you may have this morning, and offered support to others. Differentiate yourself from other candidates by being your authentic you with your own unapologetic, unique, and inspiring story.
Thanks so much for the encouraging words of advice, Paula. One of the reasons that this beautiful biomedical sciences and engineering building exists and was created just a few years ago is that this region is actually the #3 biopharma hub in the country. And so folks that are not from that sector may be pleasantly surprised to hear that. And so again, our employer partners are constantly seeking talent coming to and through USG. Across our programs, we've had a 24% increase in enrollment these last 5 years under Dr. Kademian's leadership in that sector. And in our grad programs, a 44% increase in enrollment. I'm curious if anybody on the panel would be interested to add, how can public service experience, which some folks in the room may have, translate into leadership and innovation in business or biotech?
Yeah, man. So I just echo a couple of things. Transferable skills are essential. So you think about your resume, think about as you approach an interview. If you worked, say, on an IT system in your federal agency job, it's not about the name of the system, it's about the work you did to lead a team to deploy that system and how you delegated work, how you worked across different internal stakeholders. That's the key stuff. The other recommendation I would make is quantify your achievements. And I think that's a difference between public sector and private sector, some difference, right? So in the private sector, we want to know how did you save costs? How did you improve efficiency? How did you take something that was, this big and make it this big? And what was your role in that? So as you, again, scrub your resume, start thinking about where you can show quantifiable achievements, and that's the stuff that you want to talk about in an interview. So I just want to mention, those couple of points.
Fantastic. Thank you, Todd. Dr. Riley, you serve not only as an instructor in the University of Maryland School of Pharmacy's Pharmaceutical Sciences program here at USG, but also as coordinator for the internship program for master's degree students. We know from the readers' questions that attendees are eager to know which particular skills, certifications, and mentorship programs will help them transition effectively. Later, we'll get to hear from about the great services offered by WorkSource Montgomery. But what are your thoughts on which training programs or certifications are most valuable today?
Yeah, Dr. Riz, thank you. That's an excellent question. And I want to say that now is probably one of the best times to consider doing some kind of continuing education with respect to upskilling for transferring to a new job. There's been a bit of a shift in philosophy and education to try and address some of the workforce needs. And a lot of that circles around the idea of certificates and shorter graduate degrees or accelerated graduate degree programs, because we know that more and more of our student body is not falling under what would be the traditional, student concept. And so when you're thinking about these opportunities, for many people, you already have a lot of the transferable skills, as Todd mentioned, and really what you need is just some content upskilling, some knowledge upskilling. And so that's where these certificates and these accelerated master's programs can really benefit anybody looking to transition to a new career, because it's 16 credits, it's 16 months, and then you've got all of the content and theory you need to apply those skills to a new field. Another thing that I've heard come up several times that I think is really critical is finding certificates or finding programs that look at training you in interdisciplinary teamwork. I want to give a shout out to Dr. Ralph Hall, one of our collaborators, who is part of the Connected Courses model. And I think if you explore that model more, you'll see that there's a lot of merit to learning how to work with an interdisciplinary team from different backgrounds. And a lot of the industry partners that we work with in our internship program really appreciate any kind of certificate that shows and demonstrates that you can be resilient, transition to a new field of specialization, but also work with people from different backgrounds and different expertises.
Thanks so much, Dr. Riley. You all may know, USG again is expert in supporting adult learners from a variety of backgrounds. To that point, Aaron, as a certified career services provider and a career advisor here at USG, what role can mentorship and peer networks play in a successful career transition?
Thank you so much. Yeah, this is a fantastic question. And actually, USG does have a mentoring program, which we've been able to see is very successful for students who are looking to get some more industry insights. So we've heard about it a few times already about peer networks and how important they are. Peer networks are super important if you're thinking about the job search itself or a career transition, because that's going to be the people you're tapping into to say, hey, I need further information on X, or do you have any resources on this? I also want to state that with networking, we want to make sure that it's a two-way street. So if you are asking somebody for help with networking, we want to also be sure that we're information sharing too. We all know right now AI is a big thing in the workforce, so if you've learned anything about that, maybe you share it with somebody when you're talking with them about that. Mentorship is also great because it provides specific guidance on an industry that you're interested in. So if you're interested in going into a new industry, maybe finding a mentor organically or signing up for a program can be really helpful for that as well. So with networking, information gathering resources, making sure that you're meeting people, mentorship can also help with kind of diving deeper into their networks as well. So it's definitely a very pivotal point in making sure that your job search and career transition is very successful.
Thanks so much, Aaron. I think a point that is under-recognized is, what's been emphasized here today, the importance of networks. But with respect to, again, the conversation around AI, which we're going to be transitioning shortly to discuss, an AI cannot provide a warm intro, right? And so your network is probably quite extensive, but you may not have been in touch with your network as intentionally in these last few years. This is a good time to reconnect with folks, see what they're up to, share what you've been learning, and those folks can make those warm intros that AI cannot. So do keep that in mind. So not to put you on your heels on that front, Dr. Al Youssef, but you're currently serving as UMBC's Program Director for the Masters in Data Science here at USG. You've been a longtime leader in the field of AI, which is driving so much of the change that we're seeing this year. We know that there's a high level of opportunity as well as uncertainty about how AI is transforming job roles. How can professionals future-proof their careers amid these rapid advances in AI?
An African politician commenting on the death, on his own death, said that the news of my death have been greatly exaggerated. Now you can ponder upon this, how can somebody's death be exaggerated? Because either you are dead or you are alive. But the same thing is true of AI. The whole news that AI will take over everything and your careers will die out is an exaggeration done by billionaires to make money out of it. AI is a tool. It will remain a tool. And mankind has learned over a long period of time how to use these tools to make their life easier. You will survive. The most fundamental skills all human beings have, or instinct we have, is survival. We know how to survive even when tools change, when environments change. So all of you will survive. The only thing you need to know is how to use these tools in your life, how to understand them, how to utilize them. I was in a training course last week with AWS on agentic AI with my students also. And we learned something very interesting there. Of course, they taught us how to use their system and their AI tools, which are built into AWS, world-class systems. Great. They taught us the whole thing up to lunch. Then they gave us an assignment to do, a challenge problem to solve. Out of 150 people who were there, hardly 3 were able to solve that problem within the time frame that they thought would be enough. With all the AI which was there. We also had access to Copilot and generative AI systems which are out there, OpenAI and all those things. Still, we couldn't solve the problem. Why? Because critical thinking still is a skill which is purely human. These systems are out there to help you, but you still need critical thinking skills to solve those problems. And I agree that I also failed to solve it in the first batch. I was probably the 6th or 7th person in the classroom. And many people couldn't do it at all. We had to move on to the next problem because the time was not enough. And therefore, keep in mind that there are certain human skills which are still needed. Critical thinking is one of them. You still need that skill. And if you have education, if you have worked in industry, you already have it. Communication, everybody is saying, and yes, I can also say, communication skills are needed because if you can't tell others what you are capable of doing in the proper words, nobody will hire you. Okay. And the last thing I would like to comment is adaptability, because the changing environment requires you to change on a daily basis right now. It is too much of change. It is tiring, exhausting, even for me, who teaches generative AI, to keep up with the pace of development which is going on and on. And as he was pointing out, shorter courses, and if you don't want to pay, even certificates which are available to Coursera and other things.
I think you got it.
Oh, now it's X. Okay. How much did you miss? Communication. Okay, so let's go back to adaptability. I have to adapt to this fact that this was a start. Adaptability is a key skill, undervalued, but the faster you change, better you are in getting new jobs. And I agree that this is not something easy for human beings. It was difficult for me. When I started looking for jobs in industry, I had this difficulty of thinking of myself as someone who has 3 certificates in Databricks and AWS, because I had 2 PhD degrees. I said, well, why can't I get a job based on my PhD degrees and 20 years of professor experience? That was not needed. Industry needed, what can you do for us today? And that came from those certificates. So I will second him and everybody else who was saying this thing that, yes, you need to get some certificates, but don't go for very expensive things, because if you are jobless right now, it's an expense to get proper certifications. But still, certificates from small things are good enough to start. Thank you.
Thank you. Todd, please add.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize, can folks hear me if I talk loud?
Let's use the mic for recording purposes. Let's use the mic for recording purposes. Oh, okay. Thanks.
Hello? Okay.
There you
I want to make a comment on the point about death greatly exaggerated. So, and I'll give a real example on this. So, Lockheed Martin, right? So my team is responsible for workforce development across the country, across the globe. I had a person whose job was an instructional designer, right? Somebody who takes information from our internal business clients and says, go turn this into training, and we need our shop floor trained on this. And that was, that used to be a 6-month process of developing a 4-hour course. Well, with AI, that is now a 2-hour process, right? So that person is not an instructional designer. They didn't lose their job, though. That person now is a performance consultant. So I have that person now out there meeting with clients, building the relationships, trying to understand business priorities, and then tie that back to, longer-term scaled workforce development. So for me, it's less about, you lose your job, you have to make sure you stay alive, and it's really more about thinking about how do you become more of that individual who can do things AI can, which is the people stuff, to build the relationships and really work on the strategic critical skills thinking. So imagine what that one example at Lockheed Martin times 100,000, because that's the impact it's having at our company. So.
Thank you so much, Todd. I would also, again, pull on some of what we heard during our employer focus groups recently, thinking about our friend Kirsten Haskell from World Bio Hastech, and she was just talking about the importance of making sure that she has professionals who know the industry standards, and so that whatever content an AI might generate is actually not violating those standards and is built on a foundational knowledge base. And so, again, AI as a tool and not a replacement. Todd, I want to extend the conversation a little bit. Again, you're Senior Manager for Strategic Workforce Development at Lockheed Martin. Of course, our participants are curious about short-term and long-term hiring trends, especially in tech, biotech, and health sciences. What hiring needs do you foresee in your sector over the next year?
Yeah, I'll speak to the tech part of that at least. So Lockheed Martin, right, 120,000 people, largest defense contractor in the world. We're an engineering company. So I'll break this into buckets. So first bucket is really the skills that we always hire for, always have, always will, not going to change. Software engineers, hardware engineers, systems engineers, cyber architects, cyber engineers. Those have that core set of skills around programming and languages like C++, Java, Python, do digital twin work, data analysis. If that applies to any of you, we want to talk to you. But in this state, in this region, we actually don't do a lot of design and manufacturing. So really, we have our headquarters here, so it's operational work. So HR, communications, legal, procurement, finance, accounting. That's the stuff that we're looking for in this region. If you go on our website, LM Careers, you will see jobs consistently posted in those areas. Not necessarily any one of those in huge amounts, but certainly consistently always the case. And I just want to bring up 2 specific roles and skill areas that I think have real transferable skills from the federal government to the private sector. Paula mentioned project management. How many of you are project managers? Okay, see, and that's most of you, but I would argue everybody is, right? See, everybody has so whatever job you had to set up a plan, you had to deliver it on time, all that. That kind of work, project management, program management, which is project management, but at a very large scale, is huge for us. We need people who can, we have these multi-billion-dollar products that go out the door to our Department of Defense customers. So people that can get those products out the door on time, under budget, and of high quality. So, driving cost schedules, bringing all the stakeholders together, working on a master plan, updating their leaders on status reports, all things like that, identifying mitigating risks, things like that. And then business analysts, which is related, but more on the finance side, working with federal government contractors on invoicing and labor tracking, things like that. Those are huge, very important roles at a company like ours, and I suspect our competitors as well. And they're very transferable work. Typically, a program manager is like an engineer who rotates into a program management role and then figures out how challenging that role is and gets the hell out of there. So if you are a program manager and you have those kinds of skills, you are very, very needed. And I just want to, the last thing I'll say is, and I wrote this down, so I just want to pull this up, because I looked across our job postings across different roles, and I saw the same words come up every time regarding whether you're an engineer or a human resources person, but it was, hold on one second, because I really think this is important. Problem solving, decision making, collaboration, teamwork, growth mindset, leadership. I'll say it one more time. Problem solving, decision making, collaboration, teamwork, growth mindset, leadership. Regardless of whatever role you're interested in Lockheed Martin, those are the things that you're going to be asked for in an interview to be able to showcase that you did whatever it is that you do. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Absolutely, absolutely. We are doing well on time, so I do want to take the opportunity, Scott, to pick up on a conversation we were having over coffee before as the event was getting started. You were talking about some of the credentials and some of the transferability of skills across sectors. Can you share a little bit about that?
Can you give me a little more?
Yes, we were talking about folks that might be transitioning, I think, into the life sciences sector, and some of the ways that you gave some specific examples around some of the certificates as well that I think you may not have shared with this group yet.
I should remember this conversation. I
I
apologize.
guess that was before the coffee, sorry.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. So with respect to the certificates, I think a couple of points that I'd want to make there are data science, data analytics, or at least from what I've heard from our industry partners, are huge parts of getting qualified certificates. So, certificates that have an impact on your higher ability is, can you analyze large sets of data? Can you create tangible outcomes from those large sets of data?
Was it the HBLC that you mentioned, maybe?
Oh, so, so with that, with respect, was that, again, going back to what I discussed initially, is that many of you probably already have a strong set of core transferable skills. In Pharm Sci, everywhere I go, the four big ones are assay development, HPLC, mass spec, and cell culture. And so if you already have those skills, but they've been applied to a different work site or work specialization, again, the certificates that will help you the most from everything that I've heard from the industry side is stuff that will get you up to speed on the vernacular and the theory behind Pharm Sci. Like if you've used it for food quality control, all of those technical skills can easily be rolled over into Pharm Sci. You just need to know what pharmacokinetics is and pharmacodynamics are. And again, I think that's one of the best parts about the mindset shift in academia right now, is we're trying to find a way to provide a rigorous and meaningful, significant learning outcome for you all, while also speeding up the process, because it's been traditionally a much slower process. Another thing that I've heard with respect to types of credentials, types of certificates that are really in demand right now are regulatory skills. A lot of the pharmaceutical science companies have great researchers and people who can really push the science forward, but then they're missing some of those key skills regarding, well, how do we actually work with the local government to, create pipelines for this drug or something like that. So,
thanks so much. A couple additional examples I would add, just of some of the ways that we're, adding value here in the experience here at USG. We categorize these different internships and career-connected learning under the umbrella of experiential learning. So my colleague Deb Zimmer in the back of the room here today, earlier this year, just a few months ago, coordinated with our colleagues to do a scan across all the programs that we offer here, 75 plus programs with our 9 university partners. And we're really pleased to see that as a requirement, 90% of our learners here are getting some type of experiential learning or another as a requirement. So it could be a capstone experience, could be an internship experience, and that's not counting, of course, learners who are working while studying as well. In addition, we're currently engaged in a partnership that is national in scope, but we're a big part of it here in Maryland in connection with Google. So we are adding Google certifications as well. Again, this is something that you don't necessarily have to be at USG to think about. There are some of these, again, relatively light lift additional certifications that you can get, like Google AI Essentials being one example. So these are pieces that, again, when you're adding those to your deep experience stack, as they would like to call it these days, that helps keep you at the front of the line. So, a couple specific examples I wanted to share. All right, so now as we're kind of heading into the home stretch here, again, in this wonderful, beautiful building, we noticed, among the readers who were planning to attend, growing interest in green jobs and sustainable entrepreneurship and regional innovation. Anyone care to share thoughts on how Montgomery County is positioning itself as a hub for sustainability and green industries? What maybe the most in-demand skills are for those who are entering sustainability fields?
So I'm going to go out on a limb here. I don't know a lot about sustainability initiatives outside of the university, but I do want to highlight that the building that we are currently sitting in is an example of the sustainability mindset in Montgomery County. I don't know, when I was hired here, I got this great tour where they talked about all the sustainability features, so forgive me, it's been a couple of years, but like some of the things that I want to highlight is if you go through the hallways, there are these really large screens that will show you how much energy this building is saving through some of its engineering. And it's tangible. It's a real significant amount of energy that this building is saving because of the way it was designed and the mindset behind it. So I would assume that engineering and construction around sustainable efforts, those kind of skills will be needed as more and more industries and companies are brought in and they want to create green campuses. So.
Thank you. Tyler, were you wanting to jump in on that? I couldn't tell.
I don't have a lot to say there. I will, other than I actually did notice the other day there was a job posting for Lockheed on the social responsibility side of things, like that group that is out there in the community and building community, and sustainability is critical to Lockheed Martin. So there actually was a job out there that was focused on sustainability and reducing our footprint, things like that. So I guess I don't have more than that, but
that's all right. That's all right. I was sharing with Scott as well this morning. My oldest son is actually finishing his bachelor's right now through a program at UMGC, which is one of our university academic partners, and it's in sustainable value chain. And so again, I think this is definitely something that is obviously critical for the region, critical for the world, and something that I think may be a little bit of encouragement to take a look at some of the very cutting edge fields and offerings that we have here.
Something to add, because I forgot this point in my earlier question. I'm going to tie it to sustainability. I forgot to mention that we have over 600 jobs at any one time that are remote, i.e., reducing the carbon footprint on jobs. That's my connection there.
Excellent. That's a great one.
But if you go on our site and you're looking and you see something that looks interesting, but it's tied to Fort Worth, Texas, just look harder, because we have jobs that are you can do your work remotely. Post-pandemic, that's a big thing for Lockheed Martin. So don't be discouraged by not seeing a lot of jobs in Maryland. There's work that can be done all over. So
glad we held out. That's a huge one. Thank you. Aaron, I'm going to give you the opportunity to help wrap up the panel conversation with some words of advice and encouragement to our attendees as we prepare for our break and resource fair before returning to hear about new resources available from WorkSource Montgomery.
Well, thank you all, first of all, for attending, for listening. Thank you to all of our panelists for all of your expert advice. We've heard a lot of stuff today, so a lot of things that you're going to be keeping in mind. With transferable skills, thinking about your transferable skills, how can you use that moving forward? Also, I want to mention, I didn't mention this earlier with networks, but I want to mention it really quickly. The hidden versus visible job market. How many of you have heard of that before? Cool, okay. If you haven't heard of it before, visible job market is what we can physically see. So anybody can go on a job board website, we can see the same postings. The hidden job market is through word of mouth. So things that we're not necessarily seeing, but you could get referred to, or a recruiter reaches out to you for that. Because of that, networking is super important. So making sure that you're tapping into your network, again, thinking about your transferable skills. And the biggest advice I would give as well is you all are supported by your community. You came here today to learn about resources, and we're here to support you. You're going to hear from WorkSource Montgomery a little bit later about some resources as well and tips. So just know that you can lean on your community, and you should in this moment as well, because we're here to support. I also just wanted to share, I know Paula mentioned this earlier, it's not impossible to transition your career. In my previous position, I worked with a lot of senior level executives and C-suite professionals who were interested in transitioning to a new industry or a new career, and it was possible because they reached out for help and they said, how do I do this? What are the materials I need? What should I be thinking about? So just know that it is possible, and we're rooting for you. And the last thing I also want to mention for advice is to celebrate the small wins. They're all very important. Coming here today is one of your wins, so celebrate however you would like to. But when you apply for jobs, if you reach your goal of how many you want to apply to a week, if you're getting interviews, definitely make sure that you're celebrating the small wins, because it can be a lot to do job searching. And like Paula also mentioned, it's a full-time job. So making sure that you're celebrating those wins, reaching out to your network, and know that we're all here to support you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and transition to a break. So we welcome you to refreshments and resources, and then we'll come back to hear from WorkSource Montgomery.